very early on with a woman that you're dating or just meeting, a thought goes through her mind, and it's really more of a feeling that she gets. And the feeling is, am I leading him or is he leading me? Because ultimately what's attractive to a woman is being with a man who's strong, dominant, and masculine. Well, how do you project that dominant masculine vibe? That's what we're going to talk about in this video. Hey, I'm Bobby Rio, and today I want to give you 5 traits, 5 ways to project that dominant vibe when you're around a woman, because ultimately that is one of the single most attractive things that you can display to a woman. Now, one of the things that I always describe to my clients or when I'm working with somebody who doesn't quite get this whole concept of being masculine, and I think most guys, when they first hear this, are a little confused by it. I know I was, and I know by comments that I get, a lot of guys are confused because I'll be talking about this and I'll see comments under a video like, Bobby, you don't look masculine. You look, like you look beta. You don't look like an alpha guy. And I think a lot of people confuse, this idea of being, the alpha bodybuilder, biker type guy as being masculine. But the reality is I've been coaching this for 12 years now, and I've coached a lot of masculine looking guys, right? Guys who are big and tattoos, and yet when they're around a woman they really like, they crumble like a little boy, right? I've had them crying in their beer. I have friends of mine that, they literally shatter to pieces when they're around a woman they like. So being masculine is not about looking masculine, right? It's about the attitude you convey. It's about sort of your inner game that you have around women. Now, another thing that I always say to kind of drive the point home, to give a sort of visual, is if you look at 2 animals, right, and you look at a kitten or a tiger, why does the tiger demand more respect? The answer is really simple. The answer is because the tiger is a lot harder to tame. The tiger is a lot harder to control. And when it comes to women, they don't want the kitten that they can control very easily. They want the tiger that takes a long time to tame. So how do you become that tiger? So we're going to go through 5 different steps, 5 tactics, 5 mindsets that I want you to start practicing when you're around women. But these mindsets are actually really good to use when you're in business situations, if you're in a work environment, because they project that strong masculine sense. And everybody, right? Clients, your boss, they respect that. So the first trait is the willingness to walk away, right? I always say you must demonstrate the willingness to walk away. Now, this is something that my friends and I actually figured out years ago in college. We used to have parties at the house that we were living in, and a move that we used to do that worked phenomenal was we actually called it the walk away. And what we realized was that if early in the night, there was a girl we were interested in, and we're talking to her at the party, we realized that the chance of getting her attracted to us was 100 times more powerful if we actually walked away from her after talking for a little bit, right? Because that's the opposite of what most guys do, right? What do most guys do? They start having a conversation, it's going well, and they feel like they have to stay there the entire time. They're scared that if they walk away for a little bit, somebody else is going to take her, she's going to lose interest. What we found, though, is that if you're having a good conversation, then you say something like, hey, I'm going to go catch up with some of my friends. I'll catch up with you later. And then later on, you kind of re-engage with her. Her buying temperature at that point is spiked because you've demonstrated that you're not going to cling to her all night, right? You're that tiger that is a little harder to tame. This idea of walking away and demonstrating the willingness to walk away, there's a lot of different ways you can do it, right? One is just simply not showing interest and not giving approval if you don't. So what do I mean by this? I mean that a lot of guys, when they're with a woman that they find attractive, they're afraid to demonstrate disapproval. They're afraid to demonstrate boredom with her, or that they're let down in something she says. So if she's telling a story and it's something that is not really up to their standards, right? Maybe she's telling a story about how she cheated at something. And the nice guy might go, oh, that's so cool. Whereas if you really think that was kind of scummy of her to do, you call her out on it, because it shows her that you're not willing to tolerate that kind of behavior, that you have standards, that you're willing to walk away. Another thing when you're dating a woman is demonstrating this willingness to walk away. A lot of guys will say, well, she's canceled on me. Every time I try to ask her to hang out, she waits till the last minute. She never gives me a clear answer. She's always wishy-washy. She says, can I let you know? And I say, well, you have to demonstrate a willingness to walk away. And they say, well, how do you do that? Do you give her an ultimatum? I say, no, you don't give her an ultimatum. You actually say, hey, listen, you know what? Like, flakiness is just like a real turn off to me. So, you know what? Like, it was actually cool hanging out with you and all, but I don't know if this is going to work out. And actually walk away. Now, at that point, two things are going to happen. Either she's going to go, yeah, good, I didn't like that guy, which you saved yourself some time. Or she's going to go, wow, this guy is not the pushover that's going to deal with my crap that all the other guys deal with, and she's going to chase after you. Always demonstrate that willingness to walk. Now, the second thing I want you to do, and it kind of relates to the first one, but is I want you to demonstrate boundaries. So what are boundaries? Boundaries are sort of internal rules that you have, and even external rules that you have. So an example of a boundary in a woman's sense is maybe a woman has a boundary that she doesn't have sex with a guy on the first date. And you always have to respect a woman's boundaries, but when a woman says that, there's also a part of you that respects her more, right? There's a part of you that wants her more because she has this boundary that she's not going to just, crumble down and roll over and change her mind simply because she was attracted to you, right? She had this strong boundary. Well, as men, we want to have similar types of boundaries. And this could be in our dealings with her, or it could just be in our dealings with life that affect her. So I'll give you an example of a boundary. I keep my phone on do not disturb all day because I'm writing, I'm creating videos like this, and it throws me off when I start getting text messages or when somebody calls me in the middle of the day, and I kind of lose my focus. So I learned that I need to keep my phone on do not disturb. Now, what happens to other guys? Like, what would a nice guy do if he starts talking to a woman? Well, he'd probably be scared that if he keeps his phone on do not disturb, he's going to miss her text during the day, and it's going to, she's not going to want him as much, and she's going to go find somebody else. So maybe he'll put her number in his phone as a contact that is allowed to go through, right? He's shifting his boundaries. Whereas the attractive thing to do, the masculine thing to do, would simply say to her, hey, listen, during the day, I keep my phone on do not disturb. So if I don't reply to your text or something, usually I check it at lunchtime and I'll get back to you if I have to, but don't feel like I'm ignoring you during the day. I just don't reply to anybody, right? You don't reply to anybody, and she's included in that anybody. I had a friend, Christian, that he used to tell anybody, right? When you walk in his house, he's always like, shoes off at the door. And what he told me is that he used to be nervous when a woman was coming over, even though he didn't like people walking around his house with shoes on, he'd kind of be like, I'll let her do it. And then he realized, wait a minute, let me tell her shoes off. And when he started doing that, he noticed that women were actually more attracted to him, right? He was scared that it was gonna make them think he's mean or he's picky or whatever, but really they respected those boundaries. Other types of boundaries might be, there's periods of my life where I get up really early, 5 o'clock in the morning, to do morning workouts and stuff. So maybe if you're out on a date, saying something like, hey, I gotta get up early tomorrow, I'm gonna call it a night. Instead of stretching it out and having that extra shot and spending even more time, it's setting the boundaries. And if you think about what women do, and I always say one of the most attractive types of women to deal with are single moms because they have these boundaries. They have to get home to their child. They have to, they have rules that they have to follow, which makes guys chase them. I have clients chasing single moms because they're never the center of attention. Most women, I'm not going to say all, most women don't bend these boundaries for a new guy they're meeting, and it makes them more attractive. Well, you've got to have similar things. I have friends that play golf every Sunday, and whenever they meet a woman and they start dating her, they always say, hey, listen, Sundays are golf day with the friends. And women are always going to try to test you. They're always going to be like, hey, this Sunday my friend's having this and you can come. And they want to see, are you willing to give up golf day with your friends to go to her, her cousin's party or to go to a picnic with her? And it's counterintuitive because a lot of guys think by giving up golf day to hang out with her, you're showing her that you're really interested and you really like her. And to some degree, she's going to be happy at first. It's going to be because she's going to be kind of cool with it. Oh, cool. He gave up golf day to hang out with me. But then it's like, I tamed this guy a little easier than I thought. And remember, she wants somebody that's really hard to tame. So the next trait or technique for projecting masculinity is be willing to say no. I always say the most attractive word that you can say to a woman is no, right? I'm going to repeat that again. The most attractive word that you can say to a woman is no. And what I've noticed with guys, and I've told this story to some clients back when I was in the waiting tables, coworkers, right? And I worked with all young women coworkers. It was actually a great way to meet girls and stuff like that. But what I noticed is that there was a couple coworkers of mine, this one guy, Frank, who was notorious because you could switch shifts, meaning let's just say I was scheduled to work Friday night and I wanted Friday night off. I can go to my coworkers and say, hey, can you work Friday night for me instead? And sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no. What I noticed was girls knew that Frank couldn't say no. And they knew that if they went up to him and they flirted with him a little bit and they were like, hey, I got to work New Year's Eve. Can you work New Year's Eve for me? And Frank would be like, oh, New Year's Eve, I have plans. And she'd be like, oh, please. And she'd touch his leg. And next thing he'd know, he'd be like signing the paper to work New Year's Eve for her. He couldn't say no. And he thought he was gaining points, but in reality, he wasn't. Whereas, a girl would come up to me and be like, hey, Bobby, can you work New Year's Eve? I'd be like, get the hell out of here. You think I'm working New Year's Eve for you? And that, even though you're saying no, they actually respect you a lot more. Female friends will do this from time to time too. You'll notice if you've got a female friend who kind of always knew she had power over you, and then you start dating somebody and she senses that you're becoming interested in somebody, she'll actually become more flirtatious towards you. And she'll try to get you to not hang out with that new girl. She'll say, hey, why don't we go somewhere tonight? And part of you, especially if you're in love with that female friend and you're only so about the new girl, a lot of times you'll go, oh, man, she's getting jealous. I gotta jump on this opportunity to hang out with my female friend. And you give up the new girl to hang out with your female friend. But once you've done that, you've given her exactly what she wanted. It's way more powerful to say, no, I actually have plans tonight, but maybe another day. By saying no, you're showing that you're set in your ways, that you are comfortable in your energy and your masculinity, and you're not going to be, a girl batting her eyes is not going to have you change your mind. This also has to do with favors and stuff, right? So maybe you're out and you're at a bar and you're meeting some new girl and she's like, oh, hey, I got to go do something. Can you hold my bag for a second? And she hands you the bag. And now 20 minutes later, you're like holding her bag like an idiot. Well, the reality is you just say, hey, no, I'm not going to hold your bag. I'm sorry. I would love to continue talking to you. When you get back, come talk to me, but I'm not going to hold your bag, right? And she's going to respect you more, because I always say, like, a way to tell is, would you do it for your friends? If your friend handed you something in a bar and was like, hey, buddy, can you hold my umbrella all night? You'd be like, not happening, dude. But if a pretty girl goes, hey, can you hold my umbrella? And you say, okay, and now you got her umbrella all night. Well, you've just been the tiger that she's tamed very easily. So you want to be able to say no. So the next one, and actually the next two, they kind of coincide. I'm going to go through these next two kind of coinciding. One is we're going to call it approval, honesty, right? Honesty, I guess. Approval, honesty might be what we'll call it. And what do I mean by this? Is I mean that you'd never want to use approval as a tactic to gain rapport. What do I mean by that? Well, a lot of times in a conversation when things are going well and you're vibing, you start giving approval. Oh my God, that's so cool. And you're like, and you're throwing approval out there. And that's totally fine because at that point you're vibing. But what a lot of guys do early on in a conversation when they're just starting, they just sit down for a date or they're just starting to meet a woman, they think by giving her this instant approval that it's going to make them more attractive. But in reality, again, it shows that you're this tiger that she can tame very easily. You don't have to immediately go, oh, that's so cool that you do that. Oh, yeah, sit back and be a little bit more of the judge. Be more of, oh, tell me more about that, instead of immediately going, well, if I tell her how cool her job is, she's going to like me more. Or if I tell her how much I like her shoes, she's going to like me more. Sit back, relax, and actually let her work a little bit to make you impressed or to get your approval. That's ultimately, if we think about this idea of taming a tiger, it takes a little time, right? A tiger is not tamed immediately. It takes a lot of work to get that tiger tamed. And the more work she has to put in, the more she respects you as a man. And kind of piggybacking off of that is don't qualify yourself. So we just kind of talked about making a woman qualify herself to you a little bit. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to always be qualifying yourself. So I've been in conversations where maybe a girl is talking about her ex-boyfriend, and she'll say something like, my ex-boyfriend was so annoying. Oh my God, he had to watch football every Sunday, all day. And I never wanted to hang out. He never wanted to spend Sundays with me because he was watching football. And there's always some guy that jumps in and he's like, oh my God, I can't believe I would never be with somebody. My ex-girlfriend, she used to only want to watch this show and I was so annoying. And he'd be trying to qualify himself by being like, I'm not like your ex-boyfriend. And when you do that, it kind of lowers your value in the woman's eyes pretty quickly. And we do this in a lot of ways. We do it by agreeing with things she says, but we also do it by subconsciously or even consciously trying to bring out traits in ourselves that we think are going to impress her. Oh, cool. I love to travel too. I have a really, really good schedule. I design my schedule at work so that I can travel. Well, why are you kind of putting that into the conversation? Because you think it's qualifying you, especially if you know she likes to travel. Guys do this all the time. We listen to what she's saying and then we try to qualify her ourselves to fit into her expectations. What a masculine guy does is, like I said, he lets her fit in to his expectations. And it's not about being more powerful than her. Some people say, oh, Bobby, you're teaching guys to try to have power trips. No, it's about being very firm in what you actually like. And I like women that are very firm in what they like. I don't want a woman that pretends to like things she doesn't like to impress me. I don't want a woman who's willing to drop her friends and cancel plans with her friends to hang out with me. I want a woman who has boundaries. I want a woman who's willing to say no to me. I want a woman who is willing to walk away, that I can't treat her like, I'm not going to respect a woman if I can treat her like crap and she sticks around, right? This is not about dominating a woman. This is about your own internal way of treating yourself as being somebody that she should respect as much as you respect her. One of the things I tell guys to do is disqualify yourself, right? It's sort of a tactic, but sometimes it's something that I'll do. So if a woman is saying something like, oh man, I can't date guys that are messy, then, and you're really a messy person, right? I would just go, hey, well, then you gotta like cross me off that list because I'm a slob, man. I'm a slob, right? So you're disqualifying yourself. Or maybe you just casually say, like she's talking about, selfish, be like, I'll admit, I'm like the most selfish person in the world. Or I'm neurotic. Or if maybe you're talking to a woman who's kind of like feminist, oh my God, women in the workplace, and she's kind of projecting that. And maybe that's not what you actually believe, right? Maybe you're old school. Just say it. Oh man, I'm totally old school. Like, I want a wife who I come home, she's got dinner on the table, she massages my feet. You're disqualifying yourself if she's saying like that's not the life she wants. And the nice guy tends to think, oh no, I'm disqualifying myself, I'm taking myself out of the game. But really, you've just become way more interesting to the woman because you're not qualifying yourself. You're not afraid to lose her approval. And you're doing all these things, right? You're demonstrating your willingness to walk away. You're demonstrating that you have boundaries. You're demonstrating that you're willing to say no. You're not trying to get her approval, and you're not qualifying yourself. And that's really what being masculine is all about. So one of the ways that I think might help you determine, am I slipping up a little bit? Am I too much of a nice guy? Am I being masculine enough? Is I have a quiz that you can click below. It's about 7 questions long, and it kind of walks you through common situations when you're with a woman or when you're thinking about a woman. And it asks you to be honest. How would you react? And it's sort of multiple choice. And then it gives you a score at the end. And it lets you know maybe where you have room for improvement, where you're doing good, and where you might be making these nice guy mistakes that are scaring women away. So click the link below to take that quiz. And as always, leave a comment, hit subscribe. If you like this video, like it, hit like so that other guys can find it and other guys can get the information here, because a lot of guys out there need it. Because remember, being masculine is not about looking like a tough guy. It's about internally what is going on with you. All right? So, see you next time.